Hello, this is Ms. Lopez, the school counselor, and welcome to Lesson 8 of the Strong Start lessons. I can't believe we're almost done. We're already finished with 8 out of the 10 lessons. That means we have 2 more to go after this for all 10. And today's lesson is about being a good friend. Our icebreaker for today: would you rather go back and live in dinosaur times, or would you rather live on another planet? Dinosaurs live on another planet. Dinosaurs live on another planet. Think about it and let me know. Well, I'd like to live on another planet because dinosaurs are pretty scary. And although the world might have been so beautiful with all the trees and the lakes, I still don't want to be chased by a dinosaur. So I'm going to go ahead and live on another planet. I hope there's air that we can breathe there. Our friend Ronnie the Rhino is going to teach us our special rules again, even though we already know them. We're going to be good listeners. We're going to keep a calm body during our reading. And we're going to be a friend, which we're going to learn more about in today's lesson. But before we get to our reading, we got to practice how to keep a calm body. The more we practice, the better at it we will get, boys and girls. We're going to try a different breathing activity that I learned. This one's called the dandelion breathing. We're going to pretend that we're holding a dandelion. It's those plants that sometimes grow out in the grass. We're going to hold it and we're going to take a deep breath in. I think you know what I'm going to do next. And we're going to blow out all the seeds. This one doesn't seem like I blew any out. That's okay because I am imagining all the seeds going everywhere. So again, we're going to take a deep breath in, boys and girls. Blow out all your seeds. We're going to do this one more time, boys and girls. Deep breath in. Hold your dandelion. And blow out all the seeds. And remember, whenever we feel scared, worried, or a not so good feeling like angry, we can breathe and use our dandelion breathing or our 5-finger breathing, our balloon activity, anything that's going to make us get a calm body. I think we're all ready for our reading now because it's going to be about friends. We're going to go over how to be a good friend, how to use our words, our eyes, our ears, and our bodies to help us make friends. And we're also going to talk about how we can work together with these friends. So today's reading is going to be Enemy Pie by Derek Munson, illustrated by Tara Callahan King. There it is, Enemy Pie. So let's get started. It's going to be a long reading, so keep our calm bodies, boys and girls. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a tree house in our backyard. My sister was at camp for 3 whole weeks, and I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't. It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood right next to my best friend Stanley. I did not like Jeremy Ross. He laughed at me when he struck me out in baseball games. He had a party on his trampoline, and I wasn't even invited. But my best friend Stanley was. Jeremy Ross was the one and only person on my enemy list. I never even had an enemy list until he moved into the neighborhood. But as soon as he came along, I needed one. I hung it up in my treehouse when Jeremy Ross was not allowed to go. Dad understood stuff like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too, but he knew a way to get rid of them. I asked him to tell me how. Tell you how? I'll show you how, he said. He pulled a really old recipe book off the kitchen shelf. Inside, there was a worn-out scrap of paper with faded writing. Dad held it up and squinted at it. "Enemy pie," he said, satisfied. You may be wondering what exactly is an enemy pie. I was wondering too. But Dad said the recipe was so secret, he couldn't even tell me. I decided it must be magic. I begged him to tell me something, anything. "I'll tell you this," he said. "Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies." Now, of course, this got my mind working. What kinds of things, disgusting things, would I put into a pie for an enemy? I brought Dad some weeds from the garden, but he just shook his head. I brought him earthworms and rocks, but he didn't think he'd need those. I gave him the gum I'd been chewing on all morning. He gave it right back to me. I went out to play alone. I shot baskets until the ball got stuck on the roof. I threw a boomerang that never came back to me. And all the while, I listened to the sounds of my dad chopping and stirring and blending the ingredients of enemy pie. This could be a great summer after all. Enemy pie was going to be awful. I tried to imagine how horrible it must smell, or worse yet, what it would look like. But when I was in the backyard looking for ladybugs, I smelled something really, really, really good. And as far as I could tell, it was coming from our kitchen. I was a bit confused. I went in to ask Dad what was wrong. Enemy pie shouldn't smell this good. But Dad was smart. If enemy pie smelled bad, your enemy would never eat it, he said. I could tell he'd made enemy pie before. The buzzer rang, and Dad put on the oven mitts and pulled the pie out of the oven. It looked like a plain old pie. It looked good enough to eat. I was catching on. But still, I wasn't really sure how this enemy pie worked. What exactly did it do to enemies? Maybe it made their hair fall out, or their breath stinky. Maybe it made bullies cry. I asked Dad, but he was no help. He wouldn't tell me a thing. But while the pie cooled, he filled me in on my job. He talked quietly. There's one part of enemy pie that I can't do. In order for it to work, you need to spend a day with your enemy. Even worse, you have to be nice to him. It's not easy, but that's the only way that enemy pie can work. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Of course I was. It sounded horrible. It was scary, but it was worth a try. All I had to do was spend one day with Jeremy Ross. Then he'd be out of my hair for the rest of my life. I rode my bike to his house and knocked on the door. When Jeremy opened the door, he seemed surprised. He stood on the side of the screen and looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I was nervous. "Can you play?" I asked. He looked confused. "I'll go ask my mom," he said. He came back with his shoes in his hand. His mom walked around the corner to say hello. "You both stay out of trouble," she said, smiling. We rode bikes for a while and played on the trampoline. Then we made some water balloons and threw them at the neighbor girls. But we missed. Jeremy's mom made us lunch. After lunch, we went over to my house. Something happened to my screen, boys and girls. There we go. That happens sometimes. It was strange, but it was kind of having fun. But I was kind of having fun with my enemy. He almost seemed nice. But of course, I couldn't tell Dad that, since he had worked so hard to make his enemy pie. Jeremy Ross liked my basketball hoop. He said he wished he had a basketball hoop, but they didn't have room for one. I let him win a game, just to be nice. Jeremy Ross knew how to throw a boomerang. He threw it and it came right back to him. I threw it and it went over my house and into the backyard. When we climbed over the fence to find it, the first thing Jeremy Ross noticed was my treehouse. My treehouse was my treehouse. I was the boss. If my sister wanted in, I didn't have to let her. If my dad wanted in, I didn't have to let him. And if Jeremy wanted in, "Can we go in?" he asked. I knew he was going to ask me that, but he was the top person, the only person on my enemy list. And enemies aren't allowed in my treehouse. But he did teach me how to throw a boomerang. And he did have me over for lunch. And he did let me play on his trampoline. He wasn't being a very good enemy. "Okay," I said, "but hold on." I climbed up ahead of him and tore the enemy list off the wall. I had a checkerboard and some cards in the treehouse, and we played games until my dad called us down for dinner. We pretended we didn't hear him, and when he came out to get us, we tried to hide from him, but somehow he found us. Dad made us macaroni and cheese for dinner. My favorite. It was Jeremy's favorite too. Maybe Jeremy Ross wasn't so bad after all. I was beginning to think that maybe we should just forget about enemy pie. But sure enough, after dinner, Dad brought out the pie. I watched as he cut the pie into 8 thick slices. "Dad," I said, "it sure is nice having a new friend in the neighborhood." I was trying to get his attention and trying to tell him that Jeremy Ross was no longer my enemy. But Dad only smiled and nodded. I think he thought I was just pretending. Dad dished up 3 plates side by side with big pieces of pie and giant scoops of ice cream. He passed one to me and one to Jeremy. "Wow," Jeremy said, looking at the pie. "My dad never makes pies like this." It was at this point that I panicked. I didn't want Jeremy to eat the enemy pie. He was my friend. I couldn't let him eat it. "Jeremy, don't eat it. It's bad pie. I think it's poisonous or something." Jeremy's fork stopped before reaching his mouth. He crumpled his eyebrows and looked at me funny. I felt relieved. I had saved his life. I was a hero. "If it's so bad," Jeremy asked, "then why has your dad already eaten half of it?" I turned to look at my dad. Sure enough, he was eating enemy pie. Good stuff, he mumbled through a mouthful, and that was all he said. I sat there watching them eat enemy pie for a few seconds. Dad was laughing. Jeremy was happily eating, and neither of them was losing any hair. It seemed safe enough, so I took a tiny taste. Enemy pie was delicious. After dessert, Jeremy rode his bike home, but not before inviting me over to play on his trampoline in the morning. He said he'd teach me how to flip. As for enemy pie, I still don't know how to make it. I still wonder if enemies really do hate it, or if their hair falls out or their breath turns bad. But I don't know if I'll ever get an answer, because I just lost my best enemy. And that was Enemy Pie, boys and girls. Thank you so much for sticking with me in that reading. I know it was really long, but you all kept such calm bodies. So, in Enemy Pie, how did the boy make a new friend? Did he make a friend by being really mean? No, he made a new friend by asking them to play and spending all day together having fun. Today, we're going to learn about how friends talk and listen to each other. To be a kind friend, we should smile and use a nice voice, boys and girls. A nice voice is soft and gentle and not loud like yelling. Not like that. How are you doing today? Hi. That's an example of using a calm voice, boys and girls. Hi. How are you doing today? When friends talk to each other, they use nice voices, boys and girls. And friends are also very good listeners. When we listen, we use our eyes and our ears and our bodies. We look at the person who is talking and focus on the words that they're saying. We keep calm bodies and we give them our full attention. This is an example of being a good listener. And this is an example of not being a good listener. And I'm sure all of you know just how to be good listeners. When we talk to others, boys and girls, we use nice words because part of being a good friend is noticing others as they come up to you and show you that they want to talk to you, and you have to show them that you care by focusing your attention on them. It's important to treat our friends with kindness, boys and girls. We can show kindness by being good listeners and sharing and working together. For example, Ronnie and I were working together one time, and we both wanted to use this purple marker because he knows that purple is my favorite color, and I know that purple is his favorite color. Instead of fighting over it, we decided that Ronnie could use it first, and then I would use it second. Remember a time when you had to share or work together with your friends? Yeah, we share lots of times in school and at home with our siblings, our friends, our cousins, or other people in our home. Ronnie's friend Roxy, she's going to tell us about an art project that her and her brother were doing at home. But Ronnie was having a hard time listening to her. Roxy wanted to share all that information, but Ronnie, he was thinking the whole time that he wanted to share with Roxy what he was going to do after the project. And he wasn't being a good friend because he wasn't listening to Roxy. Roxy was being a good friend by sharing, but Ronnie was just not listening. He was also feeling wiggly in his body because he was so excited and he wasn't even looking at Roxy. And this behavior was not being a good friend. because Roxy might have felt sad that he wasn't listening to her because she wanted to share about the art project. And even though Ronnie was excited, he needed to wait his turn. He needed to be a good friend by listening to Roxy, and then maybe he could share what he wanted to tell, and then Roxy would listen and be a good friend. So today, boys and girls, we learned on how to be a good friend. We read our enemy pie and how to make new friends, and we learned that we need to listen to each other. When we talk to others, we should smile. We should use a kind voice. We should listen to them with our eyes and our ears and our whole bodies. And a nice voice is soft. Remember, boys and girls, we're not yelling, and we're going to make new friends. If we use kind voices and kind words, boys and girls, we might be surprised on who wants to be your friend. Thank you for sticking with me, boys and girls, and I'll see you for next lessons.